Miriam Margolyes was on the Graham Norton show, and she wanted to express her shock and her dismay and her regret and her apologies to the audience for her comments on the Today Radio 4 programme. And she'd come into the studio to talk about Robbie Coltrane, who was a dear friend and who had died. And just before her, Jeremy Hunt had been interviewed. She called him Jeffrey Hunt, I think. And she explained how she sat in the same chair. The chair was warm from his derriere, she was prompted. And then then at the end of the interview, the interviewer asked her if she was aware she was sitting in the same chair as Jeremy Hunt, and had she had a chance to speak to him backstage, and she had, and she said, well, I know you got a very difficult job. And said, what I wanted to say was, and then she, and then on air, she came out with her invective. And the reason I'm talking about this is that I think somebody who is so desperate to appeal to the audience as an authentic person, to say, well, what you get now in performance is what you get in real life. I find it extraordinary that she is saying that there is one way of talking privately and another way of talking when she's on air. And I don't quite understand that. She says, well, the Today programme is like a temple. Yes, I agree. It certainly used to be. And now I think it's rather like a soiled temple, soiled by a level of inanity that I'm afraid Miriam Margolyes has slightly contributed to. But that is the point. Surely on air, you are simply a version of yourself. And to attain authenticity, to attain that level of television or radio honesty, there isn't a wide move between ordinary life and projected theatrical life. And as I say, I thought that was something that Miriam Margolyes prided herself on, but clearly I was mistaken, and it's certainly something I would aim for, that there is very little difference between what I am on stage, what I am on television, what I am on YouTube, and what I am in real life. I would hope that distinction between real life and broadcast is incredibly small. And I would hope that the language that I use in a YouTube video is exactly the same language that I would use in real life. I hope it is. And I don't think there's a version of me which is effing and blinding in real life, which is different to what I would say here on YouTube. I don't feel that there's a constraint around me to behave differently. And I would hope that would be the same for others. And I hope also in the comments section that you don't feel a constraint to behave differently. You don't feel a constraint to be more provocative. I must put a tie on. It's too early in the morning. I was up very late last night talking about puppets, and it was very charming, and I was very, very enthusiastic about it. And you may have noticed yesterday the number of videos I put out was significantly smaller. I was very shocked by the news yesterday, but partly I was also focused on doing some animation, which sort of got in the way of what else I was doing. Normally, I'm quite happy to do 2 or 3 things at the same time, and those people who assume I'm always grateful to you when you send me a note and say I can't hear anything, or you put up the wrong video. It's very likely because I don't really listen back to what I've done. I think when I've done it, and that's it. And that's for you. I think if I've got time, I can read some of the comments, but I don't really listen to myself. I find that rather boring. It's not that I'm not frightened of listening to myself. I just think there are better things to do. And so I get on with whatever I've got to do during the day. So generally I've got a bit of teaching to do, and then I've got my own animation or illustration to finish, and that takes up a lot of time. And sometimes I find I can get 2 or 3 things done at the same time, but it's rare these days. So it's just a matter of putting in the hours. And yesterday I think the hours slipped by, and there weren't enough. So apologies. There will be more over the weekend.